Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of All Around Hockey, the YouTube channel for the All Around Hockey fan. So today we're continuing our series on looking over all 32 teams as we start to preview the upcoming season. Now that the free agency's kind of started to die down and the offseason started kind of down, there's still lots of maybe big moves to still be made. So we kind of even look at possibilities of those. We already went over the Anaheim Ducks, the Buffalo Sabres, and the Boston Bruins. If you haven't checked out those videos, please go check those ones out as well. I really enjoying what we're doing right now. And today we move on to our next team is the Calgary Flames. So as you can see, Calgary Flames, as we usually use Puckpedia to go over the depth charts and then use the Puck GM to kind of maybe look at possible moves that could be made. We also use Hockey Reference to go over all the stats from last season. And this is kind of a little bit of fun thing that we do here. And I think it's just really cool. I've heard some good things from some people on this, and so really been enjoying this. But as you can see, the depth chart here, they still have Jonathan Huberdeau and Backlund there in that first unit, Joel Farabee, Sharon Govich, Morgan Frost, Coronado had a big year for them. Connor Zary, he's still going to be on the team come the start of the season. We might go over that. Ryan Strome, Gridon is had a really good big year for them, and then Honzek, Brazel, and Klapka there on that fourth unit is a really good is not a bad fourth unit. And then obviously Ball, White Cloud is a big name out there in trade rumors right now. Kuznetsov, Simone Nemec, they just acquired from the New Jersey Devils in a really big trade with them. Jacob Middleton, they acquired from the Minnesota Wild, and Zay Breck obviously is their top prospect, and their goaltenders. You got Wolf there and Cooley. It's a pretty solid tandem. They're not too bad. And then, some pretty decent guys there coming off. And Maxine Slabakov, Paschal, and Joel Hanley. So he's a nice veteran defenseman still on the team. This is a team that has a lot of good young prospects coming up. As we can look at what they did last season, they had 34 wins, 39 losses, 9 overtime losses, ended up with 77 points on the season, finished 7th in the NHL Pacific Division, ended up 32 of 32 for goals for. So the point production was not there for them this past season, and 21st of 32, 256 goals against last year as well. So just the goals weren't coming, and they were going in on them. It's still a young team, last year they kind of started the started to trade away some of the veteran players. They traded Rasmus Anderson to the Vegas Golden Knights got a couple of picks and Zach Whitecloud in that trade. It was a pretty good move for them. They just moved Blake Coleman this offseason. They also moved Nazem Kadri, and again recruited some more picks. And started to move a little bit towards that rebuild spot where they're starting to go with some of the kids and training some of the veterans. We also look over who led the team in points last year is Matthew Coronado. He had 18 goals, 27 assists, and 45 games played. Pretty good year for him for a young 23-year-old winger. Michael Backlund continues to be pretty consistent for them with another 43-point season. Morgan Frost, somebody I think we're hoping for more production from, but did not get as much as they were hoping for him. Could he be on the move? We're going to look at that later today too. Nazem Kadri, they traded the Colorado Avalanche. Joel Farabee, they got from Philadelphia a couple years ago. And then obviously Blake Coleman and Rasmus Anderson are gone. Igor Sharakovich, 27 years old, is a pretty decent winger. And so, and then I think the big person that they're going to really hope for a lot for this year is going to be Matt Vagridian. He had 20 points in 37 games. It's pretty solid for a 19-year-old. So could we be looking at a big uptick for him this upcoming season for Calgary? Could he be getting some of those first line minutes? Is something we're going to look at a little bit later today too. So kind of looking at the team right now as it is, this is a team that's going to be in for some tough days this year. This is the last year at the Saddle Dome. I think they're just kind of getting ready for moving over to Scotia Pit Place in 2027, 2028. And there for Calgary, so they're getting ready to open up a new stadium and moving from the Saddle Dome. So I definitely think this is a team that's going to have some tough days ahead for the upcoming season. I don't know if I can see much of a an improvement from the 77 points season they had last season. They are in the Pacific Division, which is still not on the strongest of sides. Anaheim's going to lose some of their guys from lower down in the lineup there with their whole cap situation they got going on. Vegas is still Vegas. San Jose, I think, had a pretty interesting offseason. We're going to go over them and down the line. But they had a pretty interesting offseason this year as well. So that's kind of a competition there. I think, I don't know if they're better than San Jose. Vancouver's still in the middle of their rebuild. Kings, they lost Anze Kopitar. Edmonton still has Connor McDavid. So, there's still a chance that Edmonton's still going to be really good when they have the best player in the world on their team. So yeah, it's still going to be a pretty tough division. It's not the toughest division in all hockey, but I don't know if I can really see Calgary making too much of an uptick or much damage. But it's still a young team, and I don't think that they're hoping for playoffs this year. Obviously, they're just hoping to see some more productions from their guys like Matt Vey, from their guys like Hanzeg, and bringing in Simone Nemec, I think, is a very big pickup for them. Zane Parekh, is, I think, the defenseman they're hoping to be the number one guy for the future. To see take that next step forward. And they also have some pretty decent prospects coming up as well. They got Hunter Brstevich, a really good right-handed shooting defenseman. They drafted Carson Karls. Cole Reshny is coming up for them in a couple of years. Cullen Porter. So they got some, like Henry Muse is going to be a right-handed shooting defenseman at Michigan this year. Be very interested to see what he does now that he's going to get some more playing minutes there at Michigan this upcoming season. He's another good right-handed shooting defenseman. So they have a lot of talent coming up. And I definitely think that will be some struggles this year. I definitely think this is something they can build off of and move forward. I think they're starting to get a little bit of a core, and they're just kind of hoping for that more to grow. They got their goaltender locked up with Dustin Wolf. He had a little bit of a sophomore slump, but still, I put a lot of faith in myself as Dustin Wolf. I think he's got a lot of potential to be that top of the line goaltender in a couple of years. But it's just going to take some growing pains for sure. So you kind of look at the roster they got now. Big rumors, the possibility of maybe trading Morgan Frost. Connor Zary's requesting out. A lot of teams are calling on Zach Whitecloud right now. He's got another couple of years left on that contract, and is just a really solid, productive defenseman who they got for Rasmus Anderson. I think that was a really solid pickup for them. I think they made some good moves in the past. They've picked up a lot of draft capital that they can use, and so you kind of look at the team now. Morgan Frost is possibly rumored to be going to Montreal, as that's one of the destinations that's interested in him. Connor Zary, we linked to him to Boston in an earlier video. There's rumors of possibly the Rangers being interested on him. So I definitely think there could be some moves there. I still wonder about somebody else they could bring in as a solid center to maybe take one of those top two center roles and just kind of see if he can grow a little bit. Is Shane Wright? He's the big name out there with Seattle. I'm not 100% certain if Calgary's in on him or not. From what I've heard, he really wants Vancouver, but there's still a very possibility that you should go after a young 20. I think he's 22 years old centerman and Shane Wright and see what he can do for this team and possibly grow into that future. So we're going to kind of look at moves like that. With Morgan Frost, he's got one more year left on his contracts. I don't know how much production you're going to get from him. Like we said, we looked at his numbers last season. He had 43 points, 22 goals, 21 assists. Led the team in scoring last season with 22 goals, which is not a good thing, but he's still got that production in him. I don't know if it's somebody who's going to be here long term, so you might as well probably find a way to move on from him. And the big team linked to him, obviously, like we said earlier, is Montreal. So we could possibly look at a trade here with them. I think one person that might be interested in is just kind of both looking for a change of scenery is maybe a Kirby Dach. Kirby Dach's, he's had his struggles as well. same as Morgan Frost. He only had 15 points in 37 games, was scratched quite a bit, and I can't remember if he even played the playoffs really. But he's a right-handed shooting centerman. Maybe somebody you could take a flyer with. And I think you could ask for a little bit more in this type of a deal. So if you traded Morgan Frost for Kirby Dach and this type of a move, maybe you could look at a prospect coming back and maybe a pick. Probably not a very high pick, but maybe a decent prospect there. We could look at who they got here. They still have Arbor Jack guy there. Could you possibly poach him there? He hasn't signed there yet, too. Jack Duke, somebody they haven't signed as well. Just kind of looking at some of their rosters. You wonder if maybe they could take a run at possibly going after. I think when you first do this, you're probably asking for Oliver Kapanen. I don't think that an Oliver Kapanen is going to be moved in this type of a trade. I don't know. He had 37 points and 22 goals. He matched the goal totals for Morgan Frost. I think you ask for Oliver Kapanen, and they probably tell you no, and then you probably just go, okay, we'll take Kirby Dach. Maybe they could pick up some more picks. Maybe somebody they might be interested in might be Bryce Pickford. He had a really big year last year. He's somebody who's Montreal's kind of shopped out there. He had a huge year with Medicine Hat. Maybe that's somebody you could ask for. Maybe Montreal just tells you no then too. David Reinbach, another defenseman, another young defenseman they could look at. Possible. But, maybe at the end of the day, you're probably getting draft capital back in here. So maybe you could ask for like a fourth and maybe like a third. And you take Kirby Dach and just kind of go with that. And but it's not a bad trade. Just keep building up that draft capital. Maybe you could ask for Bryce Pickford. I don't know if Montreal would do that in that type of a trade for Morgan Frost. Morgan Frost would become a pretty solid second line center, I feel like, for them. And then the trade that we went over earlier, somebody that is very interested in possibly making a move for, has been linked to Calgary, has been Mason Lohrei. I think we're just kind of going to do the same trade we did when the Boston one, kind of do him for Connor Zary. I just think it's a trade that makes too much sense. A lot of people like this type of a trade. Both guys just need a change of scenery. And I think Mason Lohrei would be an excellent defensive partner for Zane Parekh, personally. So I think that's a trade that Calgary would do. Another move they could possibly look at, like I said, was Seattle. And that's St. Louis. We don't want St. Louis. We want Seattle. Go to Seattle and possibly look at bringing in a Shane Wright. A lot of teams have linked him that he wants to go to Vancouver. I think that you could probably poach him from there. But a lot of the names that have been linked to him from Vancouver has been like a Z Bulliam or a Thomas Wollander. So they want a good defensive prospect, and at least one good defensive prospect in return. And I think that Calgary's got plenty of those. They just drafted Carson Karls. Obviously, Zane Parekh is probably an untouchable in this type of a trade. But I think like a Hunter Brzustewicz, somebody who's another right-handed shooting defenseman, he's pretty much right there to come in and be that solid defenseman for them. I think that's somebody who they could move in this type of a trade. Unless they're trading a White Cloud, then you probably don't do that. But I think you could do like a Hunter Brzustewicz and maybe like one of the third round picks or a second round pick, maybe this Colorado one. And you could possibly bring in Shane Wright. I think that's a trade that Seattle would make. I don't know if Calgary would do that, because Hunter's a really solid defensive prospect. But at the same time, like you said, we just added Simone Nemec. You just added Parekh. Those are type of moves that it's just like at the end of the day, you kind of move on from those type of guys or sorry, you got those two guys as your right side. So I think that makes Hunter Brzustewicz very expendable. And then you could probably go with something like this. I would personally maybe go Lowry and Perek and come back with Ball and Nemec, and then you got Jacob Middleton there as another defenseman. You can see the roster construction, and you send one person down. We'll work on that in just a little bit. But at the end of the day, you still have Joel Hanley there. It's pretty solid defenseman. Braden Parshell still there. Maxime Slakov, I think, is somebody who definitely could to make that jump up and play on that third unit maybe here, and be really solid. I think that's a pretty solid third unit with Doc and Gridon. You could probably put Shane there in the first unit, try him out with Jonathan Huberdeau, and then you got Coronado, Backlund, and then you still have Ryan Strome there as a possibility. So I think this is a pretty decent team. Like I said, Calgary's not a team that's going to really knock people's socks off this season. I don't really see them making that big of a jump. Maybe you send Hozak down for now and just kind of deal with what you got for right now. But I definitely think this is a team that you could take some shots at. Maybe take a shot with Kirby Dach, see what he can do with this type of a line. Maybe even give him the second line minutes with Coronado and Sharankovic. You have Backlund there. I think that provides a really good third line. I don't really see much in terms of production coming from Calgary. I definitely think Zach Whitecloud's a name that's going to be out there until he gets traded, come maybe the trade deadline or something like that. If they don't trade Morgan Frost now, maybe that's somebody they trade at the trade deadline as well. Mikael Backlund's been the captain there for the past couple of years. He's got 2 years left on his contract. Is that somebody they'd possibly look at moving? I just think that coming into this season, it's still going to be a little bit of a rough spot for them, but they have a lot of talent coming up. Could they make that big trade and get a Shane Wright? Since they have all that defensive talent, and it seems like Seattle's coveting young defensive prospect. They have lots of that in spades with Karls, Brstevich. Obviously, if you trade a Whitecloud, you probably don't want to. If you're trading Whitecloud now, you probably don't want to trade Hunter. Hey, Mason Lohrei is somebody who's been linked to him a lot, and I think he makes a lot of sense to be on that top pairing with Zane Perek as a really solid top unit. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, though. This was the Calgary Flames. These are moves that obviously are just coming off the top of my head. I don't know if these are trades that are going to happen or not. Like we said, there's a link between Morgan Frost and Montreal. There's a link between Zary leaving and, Mason Lohrei has been linked to Calgary. So I just think that it's just kind of something that we're just going to keep looking at. Obviously, I don't know if this team's going to do much from terms of making a playoff run, but I think you just kind of grow more this season and see what happens. You got a still good young goaltender in Dustin Wolf. You're starting to get a really solid right side with Perek and Nemec now coming in. That's a huge pickup for them. Zach Whitecloud's still a really productive defenseman. Jacob Middleton, I think, was a really good pickup for them. They've made some good pickups to at least stay a little bit competitive, but it's still a tough division that they're going to be in. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. What you think about this roster. Next, we're going to go over the defending Stanley Cup champion Carolina Hurricanes, so stay tuned for that video. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you for watching this video, and stick around for another episode of All Around Hockey. All right, talk to you later. Bye.